building, and there, pre-K-12, we have 84 kids right now. So I probably enjoy, I can make a grant go a lot farther with a class of 4 or a class of 6 than many of you with a class of 30, classes of 30 all day long. So I recognize that what I'm about to share, I think we're especially well suited because of our size. I'd like to begin, obviously, by thanking the foundation and ALDEF. I think many of us were pretty demoralized a few years ago when state ed decided to discontinue the state exams for foreign languages and wondered, what does that mean? What is state ed saying to us as educators? What are we saying to our students, to our parents, to our communities about is the study of foreign language and learning about the world through language, is that important or not? And I think it was right around in that same moment that this grant opportunity was presented to us. And on a personal note and on a professional note, this grant has kept my juices flowing again and again and again. I can't teach if I'm not inspired. And I'm not inspired unless I have students I can inspire through opportunities that are inspiring, that are exposure, that really, really take them out of the box, take me out of the box, and afford us opportunities we wouldn't have otherwise. So let me give you some examples of what we've been able to do. Years ago, we took students, and again, Newcomb, students who've never been to Canada. We went to, where of all places, Montreal, to see an exhibit on Peru, 3,000 years of history and culture at the Museum of Fine Arts. We stayed overnight in a youth hostel. We walked around the city. One student said to me, oh, because we had the city map. You know, we were walking, well, it's 3 more blocks and to the right. And I had a student who was a junior saying to me, oh, now I know what a city block is. I thought a block was from one driveway to the next, right? In Newcomb, so the level of exposure, getting kids in our small districts out into a big city is a really phenomenal experience. And we were able to do a whole bunch of other things while we were there. A few years ago, ALDEF made it possible to take a group of students. I'm sure many of you, I teach Spanish, by the way. Probably many of you introduce your students to Frida Kahlo, right? So a few years ago, the New York Botanical Gardens had this glorious exhibition on Frida Kahlo and her connection to her gardens, plant life, animal life. So I was able to take a group of students to the Botanical Gardens. While we were there, we visited Columbia University and met with the dean of the Department of Latin American and Iberian Studies. And as a language teacher, I'm never sure that what I'm doing is really what kids need, honestly. I know what I need, I know what I think they need. But I asked the dean of the department, I said, what, and there were a couple of students with us, I think there were 3 girls. And I said, what should incoming freshmen in a Spanish 101 class, what do they need to know? Do they have to nail the subjunctive, the pluperfecto, and he said, they need to think critically. They need to think out of the box, they need to think critically. And I said, I think I've got that one covered. We also were able to bring a musicologist and a musician by the name of Juan Diaz from Chicago. He's the founder of a group, a folkloric traditional group called Sones de Mexico. He came to Newcomb for 3-4 days for a residency, working with students on the corrido, which is a traditional ballad, Mexican ballad. He introduced students to it, and some of the particulars of this ballad is it has to tell a story following a very, very certain format, but it has to have tragedy in it. So, for my students, one girl in the class, just months earlier, her home had burned down. So my students, working with Juan, were able to turn that personal tragedy into a corrido. Also, because of the grant, Juan was able to go out to the community, do a community workshop in Saranac Lake, one in Westport, and also go to Willsboro, to Francesco Russo's class in Willsboro. And he also was interviewed on NCPR, so if you go to NCPR, you can still pull up the How to Write a Corrido. David Summerstein did, like 10-minute, 8-minute interview with Juan, which is great. Talking about staying inspired myself, I got funding to go to Cuba for a week, 10 days, and traveled with a group of educators, mostly college professors from around the US, Canada, and Africa. That meeting I mentioned with the Columbia Dean, crazy coincidence to discover that the Hispanic Society in New York, which has a connection to Columbia University, the funder, the patron of that whole thing was a guy named Huntington who owned vast amounts of land in Newcomb. So, I mean, crazy connection. And I have to do a shout out to Paul Hay, who's a faculty staff member at SUNY ESF, the forestry school in Newcomb. He's my partner. He's been my collaborator for years in all of these projects. And it was Paul who said, Huntington, that's Huntington. So that led to a project we call Touching the Soul of Spain, where students learned about literally their backyard connection to Lorca, I can't even think, but we were able to we took students to the Hyde, because Anna Huntington, sculptor, a renowned sculptor, her work is at the Hyde. It's at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine in New York City, in Central Park. It's all over. So we took students to learn about her, see her sculpture. We went to see a Repertorio Español production of Blood Wedding by Lorca. Students took a guided walking tour of a Lorca mural project in Bushwick, Brooklyn, which was just, I mean, the things we've been able to do are pretty amazing. A few weeks ago, we got a special grant to invite students from around the region to go see Coco, the beautiful Disney film. And again, timely, important. I said to my superintendent, I said, right now, when the people of Mexico and the Mexican culture is so dehumanized in our country, to have an opportunity for 350 kids together, not in their isolated pod, or even in their own classroom, but surrounded by other kids, where there's a feeling of celebration and respect and excitement about the people, the culture of Mexico. I can't think of anything hardly more timely and important than that kind of opportunity for our students. Coming up next week, and there are more I could go into, but I just want to mention this. There's a duo called Alturas Duo, which is a musician from Chile who plays traditional folkloric music and instruments from Chile and the Andean region. And this ensemble is with a Canadian, European, classically trained musician. So they do this fusion stuff. So they're coming for a day-long residency. Then they're going to do some work with the music teacher and beginning the guitar students, learning a couple of chords and a song about chicha, this traditional Incan drink. But then they're going to work with my students, and we've Skyped already with one of the musicians. He Skyped with my kids. Because what we're going to do is the kids are going to recite poetry in Spanish during their recital to their musical accompaniment. They're excited about it. We came back from break and one of the boys said, Miss Swan, what about that poetry recital? Oh, yeah. So I'll close by saying that what these collaborations do, what bringing people from the outside into my classroom or enabling us to go elsewhere, that inspires students in a way I never could. And it inspires me where left to my own devices, I flatline pretty fast without that kind of input and collaboration. So I thank the foundation, I thank the Love Singers and their team, and thank all of you. Bye.
Thank you very much, Martha. And I love the idea that being we're so isolated here and our